This right here is Shockwave, a monophonic beast with a very fitting name made by Kai Aras, also known as Numerical Audio on the App Store. You know, the same guy who made Volt Synth, another amazing synthesizer. And Shockwave is just as amazing, but in its own way. It uses a completely different type of synthesis method called Phase Distortion Synthesis, giving it the ability to sound both digital and analog at the same time. But it doesn't really stop with the phase distortion synthesis. Thanks to the cross modulation between the oscillators, you can also do FM synthesis, amplitude modulation, and even ring modulation. But wait, there's more! The synthesizer also features a very interesting sequencer, and when I say interesting, I mean that, because it can run in several different modes and it can be used to modulate stuff, and it doesn't stop there because this is also a modular synthesizer, and on top of that, Kai hired your boy right here to make sounds for this thing. That is correct. I made a load of presets for Shockwave, and then I took those presets, I sent them over to Kai, and Kai took them and wrapped them up into a little package really hard, and he thrusted them into Shockwave, where you can now use them. My presets are basically factory content. And so all the sounds you'll be hearing in this video, I've picked them all from the presets I've made. Hello and welcome to haQ attaQ. My name is Jakob, I'm your host, and you're watching a haQ attaQ episode. Before we get into this, I just feel that I need to say thank you to all of you in the community who helped me out a few days ago when I posed a question on my Instagram, my Twitter, and my Facebook. It's posted, not post. So I posted the question, are there any synths that I've missed in 2019? And there seems to be quite a few of them. So thank you so much for pointing those out to me. Right, so let's get back to Shockwave. Now, Shockwave has a very unique sound to it, and it's very much thanks to the phase distortion type synthesis engine it's using. This type of synthesis method was implemented in Casio's CZ synthesizer series. And so if you've ever come across one of those synths, you know what I'm talking about. Now, I'm not going to get too technical trying to explain phase distortion synthesis for you in this episode. I've dropped a link down in the description so you can go read up on it if you're really interested. Okay, so before we start going over the different various sections in the synthesizer and also check out what it really sounds like, I'm just gonna pop up this feature splash screen. Everything ticked in green means that something is supported. Everything ticked in red means that something is not supported. Let me also add that right now Shockwave only exists as an iPad version. However, Kai is planning on making an iPhone version available sometime in the future too, but I don't know when that will happen. Okay, so throughout this video, I will be using Shockwave mostly as a standalone synthesizer. But it also has an audio unit extension mode, and so it can be loaded into other hosts that support that plugin format. And so the synth will look a bit different depending on how you're using it. Okay, so Shockwave has more than one page. You can switch between the pages by either using the buttons situated right here or you can use a 2-finger scrolling mode to scroll between the pages up and down. Another thing I want to highlight is that in the standalone mode, you'll find this bar up here. And up here, you'll find a play button, and this is for actually starting the sequencer. You can also find a tempo control, and you can also find 2 buttons, one for Ableton Link and also MIDI. Now, this entire bar will not be visible when you've got Shockwave loaded as an audio unit extension, because those features are being handled by the audio unit extension hosts. Okay, so right now I am going to do an overview of Shockwave, and I'll show you how to operate this beast. Okay, so this is obviously the main page of Shockwave, and we have oscillator 1 here on the left and oscillator 2 here on the right. Both oscillators have a pitch source selector, and you can get some weird results if you set them to sample and hold, for instance. You can also have them running in a free mode, but I usually like my oscillators being pitched by the keyboard, so I have a conventional pitch. Right beneath it, we have 4 knobs. So we have a waveform selector, we have a transposing control, and right above the transpose, we have a fine-tuning knob. Now, the brightness control here is a bit special, because if you look closely at Shockwave, you won't find any filter. And that's because this is not subtractive synthesis. Remember, Shockwave is using something called Phase Distortion Synthesis, and so it doesn't use conventional filters. However, the brightness knob acts like a low-pass filter, but it's actually not a filter. Is this what it feels like going mad? Confused yet? Don't worry, I'm confused too. Okay, so right beneath the oscillators we have the envelopes, and here we see 2 main controls, which are rise and fall. And the way that these works is that the rise control actually works as an attack control, and the fall control works as a combined decay and release control. You also have a sustain mode, and you can switch that on or off with this button here. Right next to it we have a loop mode, meaning we can get the envelopes to loop around, effectively having them function more like LFOs. These 8 options are trigger sources, and right now the envelopes are set to key, meaning every time you press down a key on the keyboard, the envelopes will trigger, and so you'll hear a sound every time you press a key. This is the mode that I always use because I don't really enjoy pressing down keys and not having my envelope trigger. But if you like to experiment with stuff like this, or if you're a modular user, then you might actually appreciate this section a lot. Question? Do you have a question? Because if you do have questions, then you can always push the question mark. It's a small button, but it's right there, and if you push it, then you can see these white little fields popping up all over the different sections. Now when you tap them, you get information. So if you tap a knob, you'll get information about that knob. It's a help menu. And so you never really have to feel lost in Shockwave. By the way, there are more settings for the divider, probability mode, and logic mode on the second page up here. Here you can also find settings for the sample and hold engine that can also be used as a pitch source for the oscillators. Okay, so let's head to the middle of the synth and let's go down at the bottom, because here we have two LFOs. Very familiar, they both have 5 waveforms and they can both be synced to tempo. Right above that we can find panning controls and level controls for each oscillator. And here we have an oscilloscope, which is very useful when doing synthesis, because you can instantly see what's happening with your audio output when you're tweaking stuff around in here. Now, I just want to highlight some nerdiness here, because Kai actually put a few more modes inside the oscilloscope. So when you tap it, you actually have the ability to monitor either envelope 1 or envelope 2. And you can also monitor LFO 1 and LFO 2. This is a cool feature, but I mostly just set my oscilloscope to monitor the audio output. Right beneath the oscilloscope, we have a global amp mode. And here we can actually set the global amp mode to either follow the first envelope or the second envelope, or a combination of both of them, or use an LR mode. And that one is really interesting, because in LR mode, the first envelope, envelope 1, will trigger sounds on the left audio channel, and envelope 2 will trigger sounds on the right audio channel. So you can really tweak your patches to have some interesting bouncing between the left and right audio channel with this envelope mode. You also have a gate mode, and then you have a through mode. And when you set it to through, you'll get a constant tone. The quickest way of making drones, just set it to through and the sound will never ever stop. To the right here, we can find the FX section. Okay, wait. Hold on a minute. There's this section called Xmod. It stands for cross mod or cross modulation. This is the section that gives Shockwave the ability to do frequency modulation, phase modulation, amplitude modulation, and ring modulation. So it's very simple. You switch to the mode you want, and then you just increase the ratio. And stuff in here can be modulated too. Something like this really expands the range of different sounds that you can produce. And if you're not experimenting with this at least a little bit, you're not really fully utilizing the full power of Shockwave. To the right here, we can find the FX section, and what you have in this synth is a delay and a reverb, and I especially like the reverb. It doesn't sound metallic at all, and it even has a really nice high-pass control in there. By the way, both of these effects can be modulated too. Okay, so there are 2 more sections on the main page to the left here that needs some explanation. And we're gonna start out with the quantizer down here. Here you can set a scaling mode for the keyboard. If you enable it and go into edit, you can choose what keys you want the keyboard to play. And right beneath that, you have the portamento mode. Now, above the quantizer, we have the note generator, and this section is really important when you want to use the sequencer found on the second page. see, in order for the sequencer to produce notes, you have to turn the note generator on by enabling it here on the main page. Right beneath the enabling button, you can find something called transpose. You see, when you don't activate this, the sequence will just play the sequence that you've programmed into it. So it will play the notes that you've set yourself, and the sequence won't change in pitch if you do anything on the keyboard. However, if you want your sequence to transpose according to the keyboard, then you have to enable that function by turning on the transpose function. There are 3 more knobs, and the trigger source basically sets the trigger rate of the sequencer. I usually keep mine at clock so that it syncs to the BPM of whatever DAW I'm using the synthesizer in, or whatever tempo I've set this into when using Shockwave in a standalone mode. But there's also options for doing stuff as weird as you want. You can also have the rate being controlled by the LFO and those weird options like divide and probability. The next 2 knobs pretty much sets how the sequencer is picking up note data. The note source basically sets the source pitch information, and then the shift source allows the pitch to be shifted up and down. Sorry everyone. I dropped my phone. Well, I was done with that sentence anyway. Now I'm gonna finish up on the sequencer page, but before we move on, if we look at the note generator, we can see that these note sources and shift sources have more options in there. I won't explain them, but you need to try them out because you can get some very unusual and very rewarding results when messing about with these. So let's just go over to the sequencer page. If you look at it, you can see 16 steps, right? And yes, you can run this sequencer in 16 steps, but you have to turn it over to the 1x16 mode. However, if you turn it over to 2x8, then you can have 2 sequencers, both running with 8 notes each. Now this gets better when you actually start running the sequencers at different rates. We have something called sequencer divisions, and here you can divide the speed, the rate of the sequencer. And it gets even better when you start running these sequencers at different steps from one another. So you might set sequencer 1 to 5 steps and sequencer 2 to 3 steps. So in the middle here, apart from the sequencer step mode, we also have a clock rate and we have a sequencer root note setting. So you can basically transpose the whole sequence by just using this knob. And when you look at these steps here, they're as straightforward as it can get. Oh, before I forget, I should probably show you the different keyboards. Look at the keyboard down here. You can see how it looks right now. Well, there are several modes for it, and you can access those other modes if you open up the cogwheel menu down here. Now, I'm not going to go through them. I'm not going to explain them. However, I do want to highlight that Shockwave is MPE compatible, one-channel MPE compatible, and this keyboard can emulate some MPE functionality. Like the slide here, I've actually used that in my patches, so make sure that you have the slide on while you're going through the patches I've made. And now we go into modulation and how that works inside Shockwave. I want to start out with highlighting 3 buttons for you. The route button, the mod button, and the X-ray button. These are all tied to the internal modulation matrix system, and they have their own unique functions. So let's start with the route button. When you tap that one, you can see something happening on screen. You have these colored circles lighting up over the knobs, and what you're actually seeing here are all the stuff that you can modulate, meaning the destinations of the modulation signals. So if you would want to modulate the brightness control on oscillator 1, you simply tap it, and then you get a menu popping up with all of the modulation sources within it. And from here on out, you just need to choose what sources you want to use and then just slide your finger around. Oh, and let me just highlight this. You see this done option up here in the upper right corner? Well, you press that when you're done modulating stuff using this menu. Otherwise, you'll be stuck with this thing on screen. Now, you don't actually have to press the routing button itself to get this menu pop-up. You could just long press on a control and you'll get that same menu popping up. Remember that I mentioned 2 other buttons tied to the modulation? Well, next we're gonna look at the mod button. You see, when you press this one, you get an overview of all the modulations you've got set up in your patch. Here you can do fine adjustments and you can also delete your routings. Now, when you've got a lot of modulations set up, then press the X-ray button and watch the magic happen. Now you can actually see your modulations at work. When it comes to using Shockwave for sequencing other type of stuff, then the out button here is interesting because it opens up a page where you can set stuff just for that purpose. And there's a nice amount of options here. And you can pretty much set this up any way you want when it comes to the MIDI channel and also the MIDI CC data being outputted. Very neat stuff. Right, so when it comes to MIDI controllers and MIDI mapping, Shockwave can take MIDI keyboards over USB or Bluetooth, and if you want to map anything, it's very simple. You simply tap the CC button up there, you can see these things lighting up, and then you simply tap something that you want to map something to, and then you twist a knob on your MIDI controller, turn a fader, or push a button. It's really that simple. I really like it when app developers implement MIDI CC Learn into their apps. Now, there are actually 2 cogwheel menu buttons in this thing, but one is for the keyboard, of course, and the other one is for extra stuff. Stuff like being able to change the color theme of Shockwave. Yes, it has a default color theme that is, what is it, purple? When you switch the color theme, remember that you need to restart the app in order for the switch to actually take effect. I've been using it in the secondary color scheme because I like that one the best. I don't have a problem with purple, I just like the gray one a lot. However, dark color schemes doesn't make good thumbnails, and so I'm gonna have to brighten up the picture a lot. To round this up, I can say that I most definitely recommend Shockwave to anyone interested in synthesizers. If you don't like tweaking your own sound, then it's got a bunch of sounds in there, and a lot of them have been made by yours truly. However, if you do like doing sound design, if you do like making your own patches, then Shockwave is deep enough for you to get some interesting and unusual results from it when doing modulations, and especially if you start using the sequencer and the different weird probability modes and dividers, and you can really get deep into the rabbit hole with this one. I am smiling. I want to thank you so much for watching. All comments and ratings are very much appreciated. Now, if you did find this video helpful in some way, hitting the like button and also commenting down below helps the algorithms on YouTube to realize that my channel should be promoted as the #1 YouTube channel on the platform. If you want to support me in any other way, then you have these links here, and you can always share my videos. You can check out my music here. I think this thing here was a bad idea. As usual, I wish you a very productive week. Now go finger all of your stuff and have a lot of fun doing it. Kai, who took them and wrapped them up, and Kai 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 took them and packed them up into a neat little package, and he thrusted them in